and be reunited again after our summer retreat. Happy back to school. I know this is a very, very busy time for everybody. And so you probably right now, as the session is starting, have a very long to-do list in front of you of a million things. So we appreciate everybody making the time for this afternoon. Excited to bring us all together. So for today's session, we're going to do a little bit of follow up on our summer retreat. So we're going to return to our Strong Start Network shared narrative that we worked on over the 2 days of our shared retreat, and walk through the shared story that we have put together as a follow-up to that. We're going to talk about some goal setting for the year, both as a Strong Start Network and in your individual school teams and individually. And then we will continue our book club discussion that we started in our retreat around the knowledge gap. Okay, so for our team builder today, we're going to do a, back to school team builder here. I'm putting in the chat a link to a Jamboard, and I want you to just add a Post-it note to the Jamboard about what your hopes and dreams are for the new school year. What do you hope for students, for your school community, for parents or families, and add a Post-it note to the Jamboard so we can all see that. I'll give everybody a few minutes here to do that.
And if you're fairly new to Jamboard, on the left side, you should see a little toolbar that lets you add sticky notes or images or shapes. So the sticky note looks like a little sticky note, a little square with a couple lines on it. Oh, somebody's adding. Good. That's the fun part about Jamboard too, is you can see everybody in there at the same time. Guys, I added the Jamboard link again, just because I know a few folks just joined us, so they may not have been able to see it from before. Yeah, I see the question. I think, is that Nicole from the chat? Nicole, do you have the Jamboard link? The toolbar should be on the left side of your Jamboard. Looks like a little pen, an eraser, an arrow, and the fourth one down is a little sticky note.
Give everyone another minute here.
Oh, sorry, I think it's Noel Smart.
Okay, thank you all for posting there and sharing some of what you are, your hopes and wishes and dreams for the new school year. I wanted to start this session off today by really grounding us in, what is motivating us this school year and what we are aspiring to accomplish for our students and families. So thank you all for highlighting some of that. It's always an exciting part of the new year to stay focused on those goals.
All
Pass it to you,
right.
Bethany.
Yeah, as Jetta mentioned when she did the agenda overview, we're going to just for a few minutes circle back to our Strong Start shared narrative. And if you remember from July, we talked about there being real power in having a shared narrative as a learning community, right? It's kind of the way we communicate the why, like why do we exist as a Strong Start network? That story of us serves as a plumb line that keeps us focused on our vision, our priorities. It's motivating as we do our improvement work. It's also dynamic, and much like we talked about in July, it'll evolve over time. We're not the same network we were last December when we kicked off. Look how much we've learned and grown and tried things in our classrooms and shared our practices with each other. And we won't be the same network 6 months from now, right? So our narrative will grow just like we're growing. But narratives can also be utilized to foster not only our shared identity, but also foster a sense of motivation as we engage others in our improvement work. One of the goals for the Strong Start Network would be that you served as a lead learner back in your schools and in your communities. So our goal is not just to stick with those of us that are just in this community, but also spread this learning to others in our schools and in our districts. And some of you have already started some of that work already, so that's exciting. So we talked about, really our why, and I mentioned this just a second ago, not only to be lead learners to champion this work, but more importantly, really exploring effective implementation of newly adopted materials. That's the heart of what we're doing. That's what drew us to this work, is we knew we were adopting new materials and how useful and helpful it would be to be a part of a community of other educators and leaders who are also supporting this work. And in the end, we hope that at this point, if somebody were to say, what are you doing in the Strong Start Network? Like, what's your goal? What are you after? That you could share this statement, right? We want to provide students with high quality literacy experiences through the effective implementation of strong curriculum materials. So we hope that, by now, unless you're one of our new folks, but shortly after here, that you would be able to make that statement and really own that work as a leader in this learning community. And grounded in that, so Jed, our next slide, is what problem we're trying to solve, right? And that would be the status quo that we seek to change. And that's that for our middle school students here in Tennessee, we've historically been at about 30 to 40%, both on our state assessments and measures of student outcomes, as well as national measures. And that's not just for literacy, but across a variety of subject areas. So with that in mind, these stagnant trends in data are a signal, right, that we can tackle this status quo. And then it's certainly something worth challenging for us as an organization. So again, in our retreat, we looked at 3 parts of I guess, a shared narrative, right? We looked at our story of self, our own personal calls to leadership. And if you remember, we did that timeline activity on the back of our name tag, and we did a larger one as part of a kind of a post-it note experience. We did a story of us, whereas, you know, learning, local learning communities, the school teams or district teams, we talked about what draws us to this work. And then we talked about a sense of urgency as a community, what we hope to accomplish now. And we did that on our Padlet. So Jed and I looked across our Padlet as you all shared story of self, story of us, and what you felt was really urgent about this work. And we created a draft shared narrative. And we want to give you a chance to look at that draft and to provide some feedback. So if you'll look at this tiny URL, and I'll drop it in the chat as well. Couple options. You can just use the comment feature and leave comments straight on the draft if you want to, or if you'd rather send me a private chat, you can do that, or you can email me. If maybe you're looking at it a little later, or you have a thought tomorrow or later, you know, next week, feel free to email me your thoughts about our shared narrative. So if you click on that link in the chat, like I said, it'll take you to our shared narrative. I see lots of us in there. So take a minute just to read it. It's not all that long. It looks a little bit long just because I've got it all spread out. But I really tried to incorporate from across all of our local narratives to speak to a consensus about what we all feel like is the real heart of our Strong Start Network's learning community. So we'll take a few minutes to just review that and leave some comments, or like I said, send me a private chat, or you feel free to send me an email if that's easier. And if you're just joining us, I've dropped a link in the chat, which is a link to our shared narrative. We're reviewing and providing some feedback. And for heaven's sakes, if you see a grammatical error, let me know. I always have this fear that I'll misspell literacy or something. That'd be classic. All right, take about 30 seconds just to finish up a thought. And I don't yet see anybody using the comment feature, and that's okay if it feels a little awkward to put a comment out there publicly. But I do have a few kind of private messages coming through, so I appreciate that. And again, if you feel led to send me an email, that'll work too. All right. And Noelle, I appreciate your feedback in the comment in our chat that members acknowledge it will take both hard work and school and district coordination to reach these aspirations. Yeah, I mean, I felt like that was a theme across several groups, reflections that, yeah, this is hard work. right? We've been kind of honest about that from the get-go, right? But it certainly takes more than just one individual trying to accomplish this. That this kind of coordination across educators from a single school or from across the district, and certainly all teachers and variety of leaders that we have in the network will help us reach these aspirations.
And I just want to commend Bethany and hope you all notice it's been a while since we wrote these, but she worked really hard to make sure that every team's narrative got lifted up some, sentences or ideas or content. So hopefully you saw your own ideas and language reflected in this shared narrative.
All right, so time to look ahead, isn't it, Jetta? Right, we're going to do some goal setting. And to kick that work off, I want to remind us of a quote from our July retreat, plus a new one that I think is really important for us to consider as we think about goal setting, really from a systems perspective. And I don't mean that necessarily as a school system, but just the system in place around the education that we provide our middle school students in our classrooms and our schools and across our districts. We know that every system is perfectly designed to get the results that it gets. Love that quote. It can be a little bit of a gut punch when we think about, a 30% proficiency rate. There's something about our system in place that's getting us that result. So we're here to unpack that and to explore what we can do to change that. But another thing I want us to think about, because it's easy for us to hear that kind of data, and it's human nature to think about the humans involved in the system and to think it's a people problem. But we know from a variety of research across all sorts of sectors for decades now that really 95% of variation in the performance of a system is actually caused by the system and not the people. So as we are exploring ways to improve and we're setting goals, which is important for us to kind of set some goals to kick off our work this school year, really centering our thinking on the systems that are in place and not considering this a people problem. All right, so our model for improvement as a network includes goal setting. We've talked about measuring progress, and Jetta shared some data with us that we collected last spring around student work analysis, and we'll continue to measure progress in a variety of ways. And then also taking action. And we've done a little bit of this. We're going to get a little more specific now that we're growing as a network with a learn, try, reflect, and share kind of learning cycle. But have some guiding questions. What problem do we want to solve, or what do we want to improve, right? That's going to be tied to goal setting. How will we know we're making an improvement? What progress do we anticipate seeing along the way? So important for us to make some predictions about what progress we think we're going to be seeing based on what action we're taking. And in terms of action, what are some key areas that we believe will have the greatest potential to impact our outcomes? And what are some changes we can make in our own practices that will result in an improvement? Uh-oh, Jetta, do we stop screen sharing? I think maybe we lost our screen share.
Sorry, let me fix that.
That's okay. All right, while Jetta's pulling that back up, take a deep breath, because I'm about to show you a couple of things that I don't want you to be overwhelmed by it. And I can't help but nerd out over it because I love this kind of stuff. But I want us to talk a little bit about our theory of improvement, right? So what is a theory of improvement? As a Strong Start Network, I want us to think about this theory of improvement as our shared theory or belief about what actions we can take as community members to lead to an improvement, right? And we're going to take those actions and know that they're built upon ideas and knowledge gleaned from research, observation, our own experiences. All of that plays into the actions we choose to take as a network. And the fancy schmancy name for this is called a driver diagram, right? If you're familiar with the improvement science field, they have lots of tools and resources that help us think about the science of improvement, or the science of getting better at getting better. And we talk about that in terms of network actions, key drivers or key leverage points in a system that we think really will help us make an impact on our aims. And those are just some of our goals, or the things that we want to see kind of move, some measures we want to see move as a result of our work. So you can see my little start here sticky note. So if we do these things, or these network actions, the things that we choose to do as a network, we have a belief that we'll see an impact on certain places in that system that supports the use of our ELA materials and our students being successful. And then we know that'll in turn, or our theory is that that will in turn allow us to see an improvement on some particular aims or things we want to accomplish as a network. All right, deep breath. Here it comes.
Can I say one thing before we look
Yes,
at
please
this goal?
do.
I was just going to name that, when you share that quote about like, it's not the humans, the people in this, it's the system that's, perpetuating these challenges. I think we can feel a little bit like, well, it's the system. There's nothing I can do about it, right? Like, this isn't me. What I like about this approach to goal setting is I think it gives us agency to impact that system, right? And think about how we can change that. So I just wanted to give that before we go and look at the detail of the goal. All right, here we go.
Holy moly. All right. So this is just a visual representation of everything that we've been doing all last semester and this summer. So I want to give you a minute just to take it in, and I'll zip it. All right, now as you're taking it in, just real quickly, let's chat about it, right? We have that North Star statement, right? Our big North Star, kind of our guiding light out there, is that we want to improve outcomes for our middle school students, right? Pretty simple. And we have a theory that the way to do that is to engage in certain network actions, right? So it's kind of interesting that for a driver diagram, we can read it left to right and right to left. So I want you to jump over to the right and think about these network actions. These are things that we've been doing. We've been engaging in network member learning cycles, right? We've done some curriculum specific leader deep dives through some virtual PLCs. We did some student work analysis. We did some student empathy mapping. We did a modified we watched a video or two. We did some virtual learning walks, but they're more specific ones that we may do this semester. And we had some learning retreats, right? A chance for us to convene as a community and really dig into our work. So our theory is that if we take these actions, we'll see improvement in some key drivers, right? And our drivers include a culture of learning in our classrooms. We believe that we'll see high quality text at the center of instruction, and that really came through with our instructional materials, effective use of questions and tasks, right? And those are embedded in our instructional materials, opportunities for student engagement, and then more broadly speaking, some implementation practices. And that really varies depending on what curricular resources you're using, but there are certain routines and rhythms that are associated with different instructional materials that we can look to see if we're making an improvement, right? You'll see that green box in the middle, right, signifies our instructional practice guide, or our IPG tool. And we're going to revisit what that looks like here in just a little bit. But that's just saying we have a theory that if we do work in these areas, if we think about quality text and we think about effective questions and tasks, and if we really want to increase opportunities for student engagement, we believe that if we do work here, we're going to see an impact on our aims, right? And our aims specifically are that by next summer, we'll improve our network's average assignment score from 3.71 to 4.0. And remember, Jetta shared our network data back at our July retreat. So we'll move up just a little bit there into that quality assignment score zone. And then we'll also want to see an improvement in how often students have sufficient opportunities for meaningful practice on key content. And we were sitting at about 20%. We want to move that to 50%. So this is just our theory that if we do these things, we'll see an improvement in these areas, which will give us an improvement in our network aims, right? And there's lots of ways we measure progress. We won't get into that now, but just wanted you to see kind of a visual representation of all the hard work you all are engaged in as a part of this network. Jetta, anything to add? Nope. All right, let's pause and reflect here. I want you to think, love to hear you all share out just a little bit, personal reflections on school or classroom connections you're making to our North Star statement and our aims, some reflections on our theory of improvement, or in what ways this framework can guide our work this school year. So you can either drop your thoughts in the chat, or I'd love to hear from some of you. I know it's Zoom, but we can be operative.
Bethany, I think seeing it laid out like this really helps you to understand how these actions are all connected, because when we're meeting, monthly or whatever, it might seem like, oh, why are we doing this? How does this relate? So I like the visual of being able to see that connection and see how, okay, here are the actions that we've done so far, and here's what we're really focused on there with our goals. So just a nice, I feel like it's a nice visual just to help keep our focus of, this is why we're doing the work. It's a good reference, and especially for me at a district level, if we're having conversations with principals or administrators whose teachers are involved, but maybe they're not involved, or our supervisor, director of schools, to be able to explain this is what we're focused on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one, just that visual representation that I see other folks agreeing with in the chat, but also a way to communicate with others, right? Talked about our shared narrative being one way to communicate our work with others, but showing this driver diagram or this theory of improvement, this visual of, whoa, what's happening over there at the Strong Start Network, helps people see what our focus is and what our theory is around how we can actually make an improvement. One thing I didn't note that I think is important to call out is that kind of it's in tiny print only because I was running out of room, but it's very important, is this idea that it's possibly wrong and definitely incomplete. And that's an improvement science mantra that just says we're learning our way into these improvements. There are going to be things that we learn and we might be wrong. It's just a theory so far. We have a pretty strong basis for it, right? We're not just pulling this out of nowhere. There's a lot of research behind what we're doing, but that we're doing just that. We're learning our way into improvement. And this can change over time. And organizations that have been in action for a long time have lots of iterations of their theories of improvement, and ours may change over time as well. All right, see a couple other chats. Anybody else want to share on the mic? Oh, I love how somebody in the chat mentioned measurable data, right? You can't improve what you can't measure, right? So that's why it's so important for either you in a classroom or for thinking district-wide for us to call out specific ways to measure progress.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment too. I guess it's from iPhone. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But just that calling attention to like other ways to measure progress besides end of year assessments. While those are very important, I think that's the real value of doing like a close look at student work, is it can give you real, in the moment understanding of where students are progressing, where we're progressing as a group, and where we want to push ourselves. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, what's that data that's closest to the work?
That's Jamie Green, apparently. Miss iPhone is Jamie Green.
Love it. Oh, and I see Michelle, a district leader, making connections to their districts, like core focus areas. So it's nice to see that that's aligning to what you're doing as a district. All right, well, thank you for sharing your reflections. Jetta, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, okay, so we're gonna now you have sort of a big picture view of what are we trying to accomplish as a Strong Start Network team. And we're going to set you up to actually make your own individual district or school level goals aligned to this. But I want to start by grounding that in our instructional practice guide in the IPG. So what I'm going to do, and the reason for this is because this is in the drivers column that Bethany showed you here, right? These things that fall into the drivers column are aligned to the instructional practice guide, right? We got those from the instructional practice guide, and that is because the instructional practice guide helps us operationalize what we think a excellent literacy instruction should look like and what research shows us is most impactful on student learning. And so we want to use this as our grounding document because we're using it as our grounding drivers in our theory of improvement here. So I want to give you a few minutes to just read through the instructional practice guide. Some of you may have read this a zillion times. Some of you maybe just glanced at this once or twice and never really looked at it closely. But I want you to read through, this is in your handouts. Bethany posted the link to the materials for today's session earlier on, but this is in the handouts for today's session is a copy of the instructional practice guide. So I want you to read through it and just with the lens of what are some things as you look at the indicators in the IPG, what are things that you think that your school is already doing quite well? And what are some areas that you think you as a school team need to focus on in order to grow or develop this school year? So I'm going to zip it and give everybody a few minutes here to read through the IPG with that particular lens. What are you guys already doing well? What indicators do you see as real areas you need to focus on? Give everyone about 1 more minute. Okay, so as I said, we're going to take this thinking and reflection around the instructional practice guide into a goal setting process with your school district teams. Before we do that, the ultimate goal is going to be for you guys to think about where do you as a school community want to set a goal to help us accomplish our North Star as a Strong Start Network team? And so I put on this slide some ideas, right? Here's some different ways we can take components of the instructional practice guide and set some school specific goals, some areas that we want to focus on that are sort of narrow within that instructional practice guide to make a real impact on the students in our learning community. So the first example here is we will see an improvement in quality and rigor of questions, utilizing questions from our instructional materials in every lesson, right? So that example, choosing a focus around questions and aligning it to strong implementation of our instructional materials. The next sample is students will have opportunities to own the thinking in the classroom through regular use of discussion structures, right? So more focusing there more on core action 3 and some specific things that we want to see take place in order to increase student ownership of the learning in classrooms. The next is students will engage in daily writing about text and use evidence from text to support their thinking, right? So that one is a goal that sort of combines some components of core action 2 and core action 3, right? We have some ownership of learning by increasing student writing daily in classrooms, but we also have that attention to making sure the writing is is text dependent and showing evidence of the text in that writing. The next is students will build knowledge through access to content rich text across content areas, right? So more of a knowledge building goal there and thinking about how we can build access to content rich text across different content areas. And then the last goal here is we will ensure that underrepresented or historically underperforming student groups engage in complex text and grade level tasks. So that one is just a sort of model of, focusing a goal on a specific group of students that you think need particular attention or support. One of the things that I appreciate about setting goals like that is oftentimes when we focus on like the students who are most in need of support, we end up setting up practices that benefit all students, right? But it helps give our attention to students that often don't get the attention that they need in order to make gains in our schools. So those are some sample goals. So just keep those. This is just to sort of get you percolating on what some goals might be that your school team wants to focus on. We're going to go through a process here to give you time in your school teams to actually come up with a Strong Start Network goal. So Bethany has shared the sort of overarching, what are we trying to accomplish as a Strong Start Network broader community. What I would like you to do is we're going to send you into breakout rooms with your school or district teams here. And I want you to first start by discussing what did you identify in the instructional practice guide as some areas of focus that you think your school needs to stay focused on this year in order to grow. You guys can each share out what focus areas from the IPG you identified. Just keep track of which indicators got the most votes. So you can kind of coalesce and identify which are the indicators of the IPG that the group thinks are most in need of an area of focus. And then give yourself some time to actually draft a goal for your school team aligned to that focus area. So once you pick which indicator you think you need to focus on the most, work on drafting a goal. I just want to emphasize again that these do not have to be anything hyper fancy. You don't have to have a fancy driver diagram like what Bethany did. These examples that I put on this slide are supposed to be a model for you, right? It's just sort of identifying what's something concrete that we want to focus on and what will it look like in classrooms to accomplish that goal. So your goal is to make a school or network goal that looks just like that. And then we'll come back together. There's some space in those handouts for you guys to go through this process in your teams that kind of walks you through the steps of this. So when you go into your breakout rooms, you can use that to guide the conversation. We're going to give you guys about 10 minutes here to talk in your teams. And at the end of that 10 minutes, hopefully everybody can come back with a goal drafted. Questions before we send you to breakout rooms? Okay, let's give it a try.
Okay, Jetta, I think there's 3 people who I didn't know what school or district they were. Okay.
Morna is a
everybody was
colleague of mine. She's just shadowing today,
Okay.
so you don't
If
have to
everybody
put her in a
would-
group.
If everybody will join their room, then I'll see who's left. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jetta, can you hear me?
I can't. Is that Bethany?
It is. There's a huge storm, and I'm sitting in the dark.
Oh
I can't get on, so I've dialed in by phone.
no. Okay, no worries, no problem.
Okay.
Okay. I have left Ashley Rumbley.
It's Ashley Hughes. I'm part of the Greene County team. I know it says Rumbly. That's my maiden name. Sorry.
No problem. All right, I'm glad you're right here to Greene County.
Thank you.
Okay. I've got, is it Amorna Ha?
Yeah, Morna is a colleague of mine who's just shadowing the session today, so you don't need to put her in a breakout room.
Very good. Then I've just got Stephanie, who's just kind of, new coach, just kind of observing. And then we've got Brittany. So we're good.
Great.
That should
We're
be everybody.
good.
Now, you have to understand, in Hawkins County, ladies, there's only one person. Okay? Only one person from Hawkins County is attending
Oh,
right
Andrea, I'll go join Andrea's room so she's not
Okay.
talking to herself.
now. Right.
Perfect. Thanks, Jetta.
No problem.
Okay. That gets everybody in a room. Very good.
Thank you, John. I'm sorry. I'm
No
trying
problem.
to figure out how to connect, but I'm not getting anywhere.
Okay, no problem. One thing I need to do, Bethany, is update the SSN contact list because there's some people who are new that are not on it.
There
Fine.
should be a new tab on the snapshot document. I don't know.
Okay, let me look for. Hang on,
Okay.
because all I've got is the SSN contact list that I built out. Strong Start Network snapshot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, bear with me.
No,
the
this is my
2020
fault, John.
con-
I messed up this morning. I did not remember this being a breakout, so I'm so sorry I misled you.
All right, I've got what I need right here. That's perfect. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Very good. Okay, and I can sort that by however I need to sort it. Okay. Very good. Yeah. Okay. Got it. 2022. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Stephanie. Okay. Okay.
I feel helpless. I'm literally
Well-
sitting in the dark.
What's interesting is when you got kicked off, okay,
Mhm.
it made me host, which is good. That's why I was,
Yay, that's what I was so
it
afraid
makes
of.
me-
I was
yeah.
like,
Then had already made the breakout rooms, so it destroyed those.
oh,
I don't know
no.
why. There's something about when you transfer host or whatever, it kind of wipes out whatever you've done there. But it kept
Well, that's not-
recording.
Oh, good. Okay,
Yeah.
good. That's another thing I worried about.
Yeah, I'm going to make the assumption that the recording is still under your account.
Okay.
Okay,
We'll see how it pops
but
up.
we can fix that later. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think
Do I
we've got
just show
about
up
another.
with a phone number?
Yes, and
Okay.
let me see something. Wait just a minute. Ah. Mm-hmm. I can rename the phone number.
Oh, yay. It is really just storming here.
It's trying to do some stuff here. I can't. We got the shades pulled, so I really can't see outside. But
It's the kind of storm where like water is all down your windows.
yeah,
Yeah, super stormy.
Where are you, Bethany?
Greenville.
I mean, I wondered, I thought so, but just thought I would
We're
ask.
on the south side of Greenville, kind of toward North Carolina, like
Oh, I
on the
got
south,
you.
yeah.
south side.
It's grody
really
here
tell.
in Jonesboro, but it's not even, like right now, it's like the calm before the storm.
Maybe you'll
Mhm.
get this in a little bit.
I kind of
Just
like
coming
them.
east. Yeah, I love a good storm. Not right this second.
No, not during the meet.
Like I'm sweating. I'm all sweaty now because I stressed out.
So, well, we can't see you, so it's fine.
True. I mean, but what do you do? I mean, in the end, there's nothing I can do about it. So it's my type A personality then.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
and I'm-
looking at what you guys were doing made me go back and reread the first 8 chapters. I had forgotten some of it.
Oh, of the knowledge gap?
Yeah, I had read it like when it, I mean, I guess when it first came out a couple of years ago. We have multiple copies, laying around where we forget we've already bought something and we buy it again.
That sounds like me.
But I was like, oh, I reread the first 8 chapters on the way back from Manchester Sunday.
It's an easy read. It doesn't, it clicks right along. And I love the mixture of like classroom stories and then kind of the broader context of how things are playing out across, time, kind of the historical take on it. So,
But I was like, yay. And then that coincides. Jerry's given that to his curriculum people, and they're probably about to do a book study with it with all their principals and instructional coaches.
neato. Can't wait to hear how that
Question
goes.
too. I know. Well, how did schools get in the Strong Start Network?
They applied. We kind of did some informational sessions about it at first.
Yeah.
And then we did a 4-part learning series with Jetta back early last fall and let.
Oops. Storm got her.
Don't know. It may have. But I thought she would have been on her cell phone, Stephanie. I don't know. I mean, I'm in Greenville too, and it's not doing anything like that here. Or at least where I am at the airport.
And are you at
I
the
don't know.
airport office still?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks
Yeah, me too.
for those books being so quick. He was so excited. That was where I was today. So I said, hey, I'm going to go get your books. I'll be back. He was excited.
Yep. Thanks for Amazon.
Hard to beat. Don't tell Vicky. She's great.
Yeah. All right. I'm still, when I get done with Brooke's order, then Stephanie, I'll get with you and we'll do your order. There's a process to this, believe me.
I'm assuming you probably just need to put it out for all of us in some manner.
I've got to figure it out myself first, but we'll
Yeah, I
get it
knew
done.
that. Yeah, we're hanging tight on those. It's fine.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks.
All righty, I'm back. Sorry about
Rooms.
that.
All right, here we go. Closing the rooms.
All right, thanks, John.
Okay. Should pull everybody back. Okay.
Okay, hi everybody, welcome back. I had a great conversation with Andrea thinking about the goals for her school and her classroom. I hope that everyone had great conversations. Let me just share my screen here.
Hey.
We will do a follow-up to this session and ask everybody to share your school team goals with us. So we will do that following this session so that we can see everybody's goals, and then we can revisit these goals throughout the year together. So look for that as a follow-up to the session. And then the other thing we're going to have you guys do is really reflect, you've now hopefully come to some consensus as a school team on what your school goal to be aligned to the Strong Start Network goals here. But I also want everyone to have a chance to think individually for themselves. In my own classroom, what am I hoping to accomplish or solve for in my classroom? And so we'll send some homework for folks to follow up on that, so you can sort of set an individual goal as well aligned to this. Okay, I am going to move us along to our book club discussion. So we read the next chunk of the knowledge gap in preparation for today's meeting. And so I want to give everybody some time to discuss and process. I think this is a really meaty part of the book. So very curious what folks' thoughts were on this. So I'm going to read these questions and give everybody a little bit of think time, and then we're going to go into some breakout rooms to discuss here. So first question here is, do you identify more as a progressive or traditionalist in terms of education in the way that Natalie Wexler described them? How has your educator identity changed throughout your career? Maybe it hasn't, but how would you sort of self-identify here? What do you think are some of the pros and cons of a progressive education philosophy, a traditionalist education philosophy? And then lastly, how do we reconcile the idea of a common set of knowledge, as Wexler is suggesting here, with existing knowledge on other topics that students bring to school? So the funds of knowledge that our students arrive at school with, and the idea that some use of some content-rich curricula center a Eurocentric perspective for all students. I think those are two criticisms that often get sort of lobbed against knowledge building curriculum. So very curious everyone's thoughts on those. These are Jetta's like starting place questions. If you had other thoughts or questions you prepared for today's book club discussion, feel free. It doesn't have to respond to these questions, but wanted to give everybody some starter questions to get us thinking. So I'm going to be quiet for 3 minutes here and give everybody some time to percolate on this and think about what you want to talk about in your groups, and then we will do breakout rooms and discuss.
Everyone's trying to talk to you. Oh, he's not. They called me when I was home to see what time I was home. Again, but he said, did you bring me your gingerbread or sweet yours or mine? Gosh, you could do this to that later.
Okay, we are going to send you guys into your breakout rooms, and I will give you about 10 minutes to talk there, and then we will come back as a group. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I know we were having good conversation in our room, and hope you all did as well. You know, one thing we got into with this last set of questions, and I was just gonna like bring it up to the whole group here as well, is just, you know, when I read these chapters and you think about, like, I think there's often criticism around knowledge-based curriculum, around how do you choose what text and what knowledge the students are supposed to build, right? Like, you know, how do you prioritize? And I use the lens with my group, and many of you I'm sure have heard this before, of like, there should be windows and mirrors for students in the text that they get to read over the course of a year, right? Sometimes we should get to read texts that mirror back for us, you know, our own identities and who we are. We should be able to have opportunities to see ourselves in the characters and books we read, and those are our mirrors. But we should also have opportunities to read windows that are like windows to another world, right? I should be able to read a text about ancient China and expose myself to new content and concepts I don't know anything about, right? And so there should be a balance of those and for our students. So just something to think about as you're starting to think about your units and planning for the year. And yeah, thank you guys for a great discussion there. Okay, I'm gonna wrap us up here in our last few minutes by just previewing some of the next steps from the session and our overview for the year. So on the Strong Start website is we have tried to outline all of the key dates and learning experiences to expect for our year together, so that everyone can get those on your calendars and just know what to expect and what's coming. So these are dates for our professional learning sessions, and on the website you will see a beautiful one-pager that outlines for the curriculum specific sessions, the deeper learning sessions that are in curriculum groups, which dates for your particular curriculum. So look there for your specific dates, and excited to have all of this lined up for the year. A lot of learning to do together.
Hey, Jetta, can I add in a couple things here?
Please, I didn't know if you were there, Bethany. Bethany had a storm.
I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sitting
power.
in the
I think
dark.
she's talking to us in the dark, everyone. So
I am, but okay. Yes, please check out the website. It's the one-pagers there on the calendar page, along with all of these dates currently added to our Strong Start Network calendar, which, don't forget, off that calendar, you can link each of those dates to your personal calendars if you use a calendar feature, Outlook or Google Calendar, that kind of thing. And that includes Zoom information for those virtual sessions. More info will come in terms of our in-person retreats. But then also note that October, just as we were trying to respect a variety of fall break schedules, we were able to navigate spring break a little easier than fall break. But we'll have kind of an asynchronous learning experience across the month of October. So more information will come about that, but everything you need is on the Strong Start Network website. And like always, just an expectation as part of being kind of a lead learner for this work, and receiving the compensation for being a part of this experience is, you know, we expect you to be at all of these, so we know things happen. So just keep me in the loop if you have a conflict. But where possible, try to avoid these dates if you can, so that we can continue to work together as a full community every time we get together. Thanks, Jetta.
thank you, Bethany. I hope you get power soon. Okay, so for our next session in September, we will be doing our first round of the curriculum specific deeper learning sessions. This year, we really wanted to prioritize giving you all time. There was a lot of feedback last year that people really valued time to collaborate with colleagues who are using the same instructional materials. And so on alternating months, we'll be doing these curriculum specific groups for our monthly meeting. So for next month's meeting, you'll see the specific dates here. So if you use My Perspectives, we'll be meeting on September 14th. If you use Amplify, we'll be meeting on September 15th. If you use Guidebooks, we'll be meeting on the 16th. And we'll have teacher and leader breakout groups in those sessions. We will be focused in next month's session around vocabulary instruction. So please come prepared to the session bring a lesson, an upcoming lesson that in some way highlights vocabulary instruction. It does not have to be, you know, a huge chunk of the lesson, but where there is some attention to explicit vocabulary instruction in the lesson. So bring a lesson from your own instructional materials that has that. And then just reflect on these two questions. So how do my instructional materials approach vocabulary instruction? And where do I struggle in supporting my students with vocabulary? So that is our focus for next month. And we
And Jetta,
are, yes, ma'am.
That's okay. I'll just add that we'll keep this same order every time we do these curriculum specific dates. So it'll be a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we'll always have my perspectives on the Tuesday, Amplify on the Wednesday, and Guidebook Group on the Thursday. So you'll see that repeated across the year in that order.
Great. And I'm really excited about doing those with you all. I think it'll be a nice way to build some community across our schools who use the same instructional materials, and for you to have more people to collaborate and plan with. So with that, I will let everyone have a wonderful evening and afternoon. Appreciate everyone's time. And as always, reach out to Bethany or I if you have any questions or concerns about any of this. And if not, we will see you next month. Happy beginning of school year.
Thanks, everyone. Look out for a follow-up email from me.
Bye, everybody.